Hi, I'm Alex Uhas with FemTechNet, and I'm interviewing Elizabeth Losh about the keyword archive. And Liz, I'm wondering, how do we think about archives from a platform studies perspective?
So I think one of the things that's important is that digital archives have a material component, that they don't just exist out in this magical cyberspace, that you need servers, that you need chips, that you need all of this physical stuff that was made by someone somewhere. And this is one thing that feminist scholars have really been working on, is kind of uncovering that history. And somebody like Lisa Nakamura, who's looking at kind of where computer chips are made, and who makes them, and what's the role of women of color in this manufacture. But also, when we're thinking from a platform studies perspective, it means that we're thinking about the constraints and affordances of the material world. And we're thinking about how particular decisions about technology open up some possibilities and close off others. One thing about physical stuff, though, is that it exists in the physical world and it decays and it's vulnerable. And there are things like bit rot, where if a mouse eats a corner of a page of a book, you still have the rest of the page. But if you have bit rot on a file, then the whole file becomes unreadable. And so actually our whole digital legacy is a lot more vulnerable than anybody really necessarily wants to think about. And that's a real challenge.
Can you talk about that in terms of a particularly feminist perspective, or what makes that kind of thinking feminist?
I think what makes that kind of thinking feminist is that you're not thinking about history as something that is created by monuments that last forever. Instead, you're thinking about history as a kind of dynamic set of narratives that's constructed by particular agents in a particular political and personal moment, and that people make sense of those practices in the material world in a kind of case-by-case basis that doesn't necessarily have this kind of promise of forever. And I think that's pretty darn feminist. And I think part of it is feminists are kind of thinking about this question of what does it mean to make monuments to begin with.
Well, thank you. We hope you'll continue the conversation by watching or making a video, and I would suggest a keyword monument might be a good place to follow. How about you, Liz?
I think that's a pretty good one. Maybe preservation, too.
I like labor also. Thanks.